Were you thinking, this is it, my manifestation is finally coming through, and it's coming through and everything's amazing, and then boom, it just hits the fan, something wasn't right, something really crazy happened, life threw you a major curveball? You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not unfixable. It's not hopeless. I'm going to talk about this in today's video. Hey, thanks for tuning in. My name is Alex. I talk about manifestation and healing your soul and how those two go together. Now, today's video, I know I'm starting this very cheerful and fun, but honestly, this is a more serious topic. So if my tone changes, just know it's because I really want to be as vulnerable and real with you as possible. Because this is actually something that's really tough. This isn't something that is that easy to process, because I'm not talking about some little hiccup in life. I'm talking about you're really, really working on something that means a lot to you, and you're working on core wounding and healing that, and it's something you're taking very seriously. And for the first time, or maybe the first time in a long time, you're starting to envision what your new life could be like. You're starting to believe that you deserve better than your past. And everything's going kind of well. Maybe you're starting to see little bits of movement here and there, and then some sort of big thing starts to come through, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've done it. This is it. Here it comes. Speaking of here it comes, my cat is trying to find his way into my lap, but not in this video, buddy. So you're thinking here it comes, it's really coming in, or at least if this isn't it, it's just something great. And, I can only have greater. And then something really dramatic comes through. Maybe it is totally unrelated, some sort of outside event, or maybe it is part of your manifestation, part of the movement that you're seeing. You see some sort of dark side or flip side to things that you were not expecting, and it could really throw you for a loop and make you think I worked on all this wounding and it started to come through, and I could see the reflections of that. What is going on? Why is it coming with these very undesirable circumstances? Is this am I ever going to break through of this? I fixed these issues and it comes through with this crap. It can feel very, very disheartening, because it can almost feel like you're being punished for manifesting something better for yourself, or it can feel like you can never truly have that thing. It could be making you feel okay, you wanted XYZ, you got it, but you have to deal with this too. And that's simply not true, but it can feel that way. It can feel that way. So what is going on that you've healed these things, or you're healing these things, and they're starting to show up for you, and now they're coming with some things that are really awful to face, or really uncomfortable to be in and be experiencing or be witnessing? What is going on? I just had this happen to me recently. I've been working on myself, and I could feel that shift within me, that I was really, in a new place in life, in a new energy in life. I was so excited about it. And I was starting to see all of that movement show up in my reality. And you guys know that I love to give specific examples, but unfortunately, with the recent events and the nature of those events, that is not something I can share, so I'm going to have to be vague with you. I can't even think of another example to give, because this is such a specific situation, but I will share the beliefs that I identified with these situations. So, I've been working on feeling that I deserve to be a priority, feeling that I deserve just healthy attention. Communication was a big one for me. And all these things were starting to come through in all areas of my life, and they were really starting to shine in some, and I was very excited. And then all of a sudden, these new healed reflections turned out to be bringing some wounds that I had not seen. And because I had not seen them, it felt like when it first happened, it was so shocking to me that it felt like I couldn't have the positive things without these negative things, that maybe there was something wrong with me. And, it like triggers old mindsets of, oh my gosh, like, can things ever really get better? Is it always going to be this trade-off of, oh, okay, well, you can have this, but you have to deal with this? Like, am I ever going to be free to just truly have the free and clear happiness, or the free and clear positive, healed reflections? And, it was a lot. I let myself process mentally without judgment. I made sure that I didn't get too stuck in loops, because it was a situation where I felt a little victimized. And I gave myself like a day or two to just feel that way and know that like I wanted to keep things moving at whatever that pace was. But I really did feel, and have these thoughts and these fears of, is there something wrong with me that I can't manifest? But of course I I teach you guys, or I share with you guys, everything that I've learned. And obviously the obvious answer, which is not so obvious when you're in the midst of all these triggers and craziness and chaos in your life, is that no, this is just another wound that's coming up. And so what I see that happened for me, and I see that this happens across the board, just maybe not on such a dramatic scale as what I recently experienced, was that it's literally almost like you're pulling up pieces of you from the mud. This is the visual I get, that I'm pulling up these old pieces. If you've seen Spirited Away, when she's in the bathhouse and she's trying to pull all of that trash out of that mud stink spirit, it's kind of like that. Like you're like, oh, okay, I see, in the movie, like I see the bicycle, or, whatever that first bit was that she saw sticking out of him, and she starts pulling on it. So when you start manifesting or using the processes, the exercises of manifestation, and you're consciously manifesting, you're consciously healing yourself, you're pulling on that first thread. And so you start to see more and more as you're pulling on it. And so it's literally like pulling something out of the mud, and you think that you are just grabbing, this one thing. As you're pulling it out of the mud, some other stuff is coming with it. And it can be a bit shocking because you thought that you had a handle on what you needed to work on. And also it can feel shocking because it feels like you didn't fully get to sit in the moment of success of the transformation that you've made without, boom, something else coming through and smacking you in the face. And it can be very disheartening. But what's really happening, and give yourself, the time and grace to process these things, like I had to do for myself, it's just pulling up more things that need healing. You haven't failed. It's not hopeless. You are on the right path. There is just more than you originally knew about. Because, looking back on my situation, I'm making these massive changes in my life. And for me, it's a very deep transformation. I have had, I don't know, past tense is appropriate or not yet. I don't, I think I know where I'm at in my healing journey, but you never really know. But like, I have had some very deep wounds. And so it's gonna take more than like a month or two of working on myself. It's going to be an ongoing process. And honestly, deep wounds or not, life just is that. It's an ongoing process of healing. There's always more work to be done. But yeah, it can feel very disheartening of like, oh my gosh, like I just, this totally blindsided me, and it can make you feel all sorts of different ways. I've shared how this recent event made me feel, but it can make you feel however is appropriate for you, based on your past experiences and your mental conditioning that you've gone through. But you're not hopeless. It's like, when I think about it, if I had known the full scope of what I needed to work on when I first started, it would have been so overwhelming. Like Can't say that I would have decided not to do it and set out on this path, but I don't know. It would have changed things a lot if I really knew that I would get through this first little mountain, thinking it was the big mountain, and then there was a bigger mountain behind it. It's just like life is happening the way that is best intended for you and your process, but it can feel really, really intense. And it can be shocking because it just can come through so clearly. But what I'm really grateful for was that when this one situation came through was something very shocking for me that was difficult for me to process, because it triggered a lot of, like I said, victim mentality for me. I had a couple other things show up in my life, like all within the span of 3 days, right? They say when it rains, it pours. I had several other things coming up that were each connected to the core event in its own way. And it showed me 3 new wounds that I had that, as painful or uncomfortable as these situations were as they were coming up, the wounding, interestingly enough, didn't feel as deep as the wounds that had originally set me out on the path. So it was like the reflections were more painful. But the actual healing has happened rather quickly, at least that initial big chunk or big settling, because it put me in a very anxious state. And so I was really wanting to move this energy through myself. And I just didn't have the opportunity for a couple days, because work and life. And like I said, more things were happening. And I was just like, what is going on? And that is going to lead, actually, my next video is going to be about how what I've recently experienced led me to give up. And I don't mean that in a defeatist way. I mean it in a really beautiful surrender kind of way. It took me to that next level where, it was almost like I was just reaching for these things that I dream of. And it's like, my hands got burnt. And I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm not touching anything ever again. And everything that's meant for me can just come to me. That's it. Fine. I'm finally letting go of control, or, taking the next step towards that. But when I expressed it to some of my friends, they were concerned that I was just giving up on dreaming in life. And I was like, no. So I didn't know how to explain it to them. So I'm going to do a whole video on, and that'll be the next one that comes out later this week, about what that felt like, what that surrender felt like, and how you can give something up and not want it anymore, but still receive it and still, I don't know. It's like you redefine the word want. I don't think there is another word for it. It's just a different energy behind it. You've probably heard people talk about you can want things, but you can't need them, right? You can desire things, but that means that you lack them. So basically just shifting out of that and wanting things that you don't need, or being open to receiving, different things. But I basically just really let go of so much in life, and really, I'll talk about that in the next video. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. But I'm going to wrap this one up here. I really wanted to make this because I feel like so I personally believe more in sidereal astrology, which is based on where the planets and constellations are in the sky at any given time. Standard tropical, I think, is too fixed and outdated mapping is the way to put it. So Aries season, according to sidereal, actually didn't start until, I bet you, last week. And everyone I know had literally crazy things. It was a boiling point was reached and things were just pouring out, and it was shocking to all of us, everything that was going on. And I was seeing it in everyone around me's life. Everyone was going through something, and we were like, this is just a crazy week. It was so chaotic, but I believe that it brought up the lessons that we're meant to be focusing on for this next year, because I believe Aries is the start of the new year, truly. And we've got Mercury retrograde coming up, so just really, really great opportunity to look at our reflections. But I'm going to wrap this up here. But I feel like that's what's been going on, and it was rough. And for whatever reason, it knocked me off my feet enough to just have me kind of questioning things, I mostly because I thought that things would be a little bit easier. Or maybe it was just because these things were scary to me, and that scared me because these were not wounds that I was expecting to see, and I had to identify things I haven't had to identify before. So it was interesting because these were like hyper specific ones. These weren't really like standard ones. It was really interesting. So wrapping it up here, thank you so much for tuning in. I Googled how to get the best mic settings for my microphone, and look at me, like a year or so later of owning this, and I finally know how to use it properly. I didn't know that there was a wrong way to use it, but hopefully the audio is better. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts on this, my microphone, on what life has been having in store for you lately, whatever. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. They make my day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.